It's funny how life works, I said quietly, watching the notification pop up on my phone, another desperate voicemail from Ashley. One betrayal was all it took to destroy their perfect family image. And now, they're about to learn what real consequences feel like. My name is Claire, and at 35, I was about to teach my family a lesson they'd never forget. But to understand how I got here, we need to go back. Back to when I still believed that family meant unconditional love and support. The day I signed those mortgage papers was supposed to be one of the best days of my life. After years of careful saving and countless sacrifices, I had finally done it, purchased my own place, a modest but modern 2-bedroom apartment in a quiet neighborhood, away from my parents' constant criticism and my sister Ashley's never-ending drama. The real estate agent had just handed me the keys, and I could still feel their weight in my palm, a physical reminder of my hard-won independence. But instead of celebrating, I found myself sitting in my car, gripping the steering wheel as I tried to steady my breathing. The memory of this morning's conversation with my mother was still ringing in my ears. Really, Claire? $480,000 for a starter home, she had scoffed over the phone. You're being irresponsible again. Just like when you spent all your weekends at that filthy animal shelter instead of focusing on your studies. I closed my eyes, remembering those weekends from my teenage years. While other kids were hanging out at the mall or going to parties, I was cleaning kennels, walking dogs, and learning about animal care. It wasn't just volunteer work, it was my escape, my sanctuary from a home where nothing I did was ever quite good enough. You've always been different, my mother would say, in that carefully measured tone that made the word sound like an accusation. Always choosing the difficult path. Not like Ashley. Ashley. My dear younger sister, the golden child. At 28, she still lived at home, finding herself, while our parents funded her endless string of failed attempts at becoming an influencer. Meanwhile, I had worked my way up through the marketing industry, earned every promotion, saved every possible dollar. But somehow, I was still the one making questionable choices. I pulled into the parking spot of my new building, my building, and let out a long breath. Tomorrow would be different. Tomorrow, I would finally do something I'd been dreaming about since I was 17, I would adopt a dog of my own. The local shelter opened at 9 a.m., and I was there at 8:45, heart pounding with anticipation. The familiar sounds and smells brought back memories of my volunteer days, but this time, I wasn't here to help, I was here to find a family member. Claire? A voice called out. Claire. Is that really you? I turned to see Maria, one of the shelter staff I'd worked with years ago. She'd barely aged, her salt and pepper hair pulled back in the same practical ponytail. It's been what, almost 20 years? She smiled warmly. Still remember how you used to spend extra time with the difficult cases, the ones nobody else wanted to work with? I nodded, feeling a flush of pride. Those were the ones that needed us most. Well then, she said, a knowing look in her eyes, I think there's someone you should meet. She led me to the back of the shelter, to a kennel slightly separated from the others. Inside was a golden Labrador with soulful brown eyes that seemed to look right through me. This is Max, Maria explained. He was brought in about 3 months ago. Previous owners surrendered him because they were moving abroad, or so they claimed. He's been challenging. Smart as a whip, but he's got trust issues. Doesn't warm up to most people. As if to prove her point, Max retreated to the back of his kennel when Maria approached. But when I knelt down, he took a hesitant step forward. Hey, there, buddy, I said softly, letting him catch my scent. I know what it's like when the people who should love you let you down. Something in my voice must have reached him because he came closer, tail giving a tentative wag. When he finally pressed his nose against the chain-link fence, letting me scratch his ears through the gaps, Maria let out a surprised laugh. Well, would you look at that, she said. Seems like some things never change. You still have the touch. 2 hours later, I was leading Max into my new apartment, watching as he cautiously explored his surroundings. His previous owners had left him with some behavioral issues. He was anxious around sudden movements, distrustful of treats offered by hand, and had a tendency to guard his food bowl. But I saw past all that to the intelligent, loving dog underneath. We're going to work through this together, I promised him as he finally settled on the new bed I'd bought him. No one's going to abandon you again. If only I'd known then how that promise would be tested. I spent the next few weeks in a happy routine of morning walks, evening training sessions, and weekend adventures at the dog park. I enrolled Max in professional training classes, not because he was badly behaved, but because I wanted to give him the best possible chance at overcoming his past trauma. You've got yourself a special one here, his trainer, Jack, told me after our first session. He's incredibly smart, eager to please once he trusts you. But there's still a lot of anxiety there. I know, I replied, watching Max execute a perfect sit-stay while eyeing a nearby runner warily. We're working on it. You know what I find interesting? Jack said, his voice thoughtful. Dogs with trust issues, they often mirror their owners' experiences. The way you handle Max, it's like you understand exactly where he's coming from. I felt a chill run down my spine at his words, remembering all the times my own trust had been betrayed by the people who should have protected me. But before I could respond, my phone buzzed with a text from Ashley. Mom says you got a dog? OMG, you have to bring him over. I need pics for my Instagram. I stared at the message, already feeling the familiar knot of anxiety forming in my stomach. Introducing Max to my family was inevitable, but I had been putting it off. However, after 3 weeks of successful training and bonding, maybe it was time. I should have known better. The moment I walked through my parents' front door with Max on his leash, I knew it was a mistake. My mother's face scrunched up like she'd smelled something rotten, my father crossed his arms defensively, and Ashley, sprawled on the couch with her phone, barely looked up. You actually brought it inside? Mom said, stepping back as if Max might attack her designer shoes at any moment. His name is Max, I replied, trying to keep my tone light despite the immediate tension. And yes, I brought him inside. It's February, and it's freezing outside. Dad glanced at Max, who was sitting perfectly at my side, just as we'd practiced. Well, don't let it on the furniture. Your mother just had the couches cleaned. He won't, I said firmly, giving Max a gentle pat. He looked up at me with those trusting eyes, completely unaware of the cold reception he was receiving. Little did I know, this was just the beginning. In just a few months, one of these people would betray us both in a way I never could have imagined. And when that happened, I would finally learn that sometimes, the most important family isn't the one you're born into, it's the one you choose to fight for. But that story? That's where things really get interesting. The promotion came on a Tuesday. I was reviewing campaign metrics when my boss called me into her office. Claire, take a seat, Lisa said, sliding a folder across her desk. We're opening a new branch office in Seattle, and we need someone to head up the launch. 2 months on site, full project oversight, and... She paused meaningfully, a significant step up in terms of both responsibility and compensation. The numbers in the folder made my eyes widen. This was the opportunity I'd been working toward for years. But as I sat there, my thoughts immediately went to Max. 2 months was a long time, and the thought of putting him in a kennel made my stomach turn. He'd already been abandoned once, I couldn't bear him feeling that way again. I need to figure out a few things, but I want this opportunity, I told Lisa. Can I give you a definite answer tomorrow? She nodded, understanding in her eyes. Of course. Just don't take too long, we need to move on this quickly. That evening, as I researched pet hotels and dog sitters, there was a knock at my door. I opened it to find Ashley standing there, shifting uncomfortably. Mom said you weren't answering her calls, so she sent me to check on you, she said, stepping inside without waiting for an invitation. Max trotted over to greet her, and she absently pushed him away when he tried to sniff her hand. Why are there suitcases out? She asked, pointing to the luggage I'd pulled from storage. I explained about the business trip, watching her eyes light up with interest as I mentioned the potential promotion. So what's the problem? Sounds like an amazing opportunity, she said, flopping down on my couch. It's Max. I don't know where he'll stay while I'm gone. Ashley looked at Max, who had retreated to his bed, something shifting in her expression. I could watch him, she offered suddenly. I stared at her, not sure I'd heard correctly. You? But you don't even like dogs. She shrugged. I could stay here in your apartment. It would give me a break from mom and dad, and you wouldn't have to put him in some kennel. I hesitated. Something didn't feel right about this sudden change of heart, but I was running out of options. There would be rules, I said firmly. No parties, keep the place clean, Max needs 2 walks a day, and his food is measured out, I'll show you how much. Got it, she interrupted, rolling her eyes. I'm not a child, Claire. The day of my departure arrived too quickly. Ashley showed up with 2 large suitcases, looking more like she was moving in permanently than pet sitting. Remember, Max's dinner is at 6, and he gets these dental treats before bed, I explained as I waited for my Uber. Everything will be fine, Ashley said, pushing me toward the door. Go be successful. Max and I will have a great time. I knelt down to hug Max, feeling a lump in my throat. Be a good boy. I'll miss you so much. The car honked outside. I gave Max one last pat, shot Ashley a warning look, and left. The first week in Seattle was a whirlwind of meetings and system setups. Every night I texted Ashley for updates on Max. She always replied with brief messages, all good here or Max is fine, stop worrying. Occasionally I managed to video call her, and seeing Max's face on screen, hearing his excited bark when he recognized my voice, eased my anxiety. By the 3rd week, I'd settled into a routine. The new team was enthusiastic, and I found myself enjoying the challenge. Ashley's updates continued, always positive, always brief. Then late one evening, my phone rang. It was Mrs. Carter, my neighbor from the apartment next door. Claire, dear, I hate to bother you, she began, her voice tight with annoyance, but there's been quite a disturbance from your apartment these past few nights. Loud music, many people coming and going, and I'm concerned about your dog. He's been barking and crying a lot. It doesn't sound like he's happy. After thanking Mrs. Carter, I immediately called Ashley. She answered on the 4th ring, music pulsing in the background. Hello, she shouted over the noise. Ashley, what's going on? Turn down the music. We need to talk. The music grew fainter. What's up? It's kind of late here. I just got a call from my neighbor. She says you've been throwing parties and Max is upset. Your neighbor is exaggerating, Ashley scoffed. We had a couple of friends over, that's all. And Max is fine. Show me the apartment. Right now. Video call. The call switched to video. Red plastic cups littered my coffee table, there were people visible in the background, and the living room was a disaster zone. Where's Max? I asked, my voice dangerously quiet. The camera panned to show Max huddled in the corner of the kitchen, looking anxious. Get everyone out now and take Max for a walk. A proper one. She rolled her eyes but nodded. Fine. Everything will be back to normal tomorrow. Stop overreacting. I hung up and immediately called my parents, hoping they might talk sense into Ashley. But as soon as I explained the situation, I realized my mistake. You're making a mountain out of a molehill, Claire, my mother said dismissively. Ashley's just enjoying a little freedom from us for once. She promised to take care of Max, and she's breaking that promise. It's just a dog, Dad chimed in. And frankly, you've always been too uptight. No wonder you don't have many friends. The comparison stung. Could you at least check on her? Make sure she's keeping the place decent? You're being controlling, Mom said. Ashley will be fine. Don't call us with these petty complaints again. They hung up, leaving me seething with frustration and worry. I should have known better than to expect their support. As always, Ashley was the golden child who could do no wrong. The days following my confrontation with Ashley blurred together. I threw myself into work, trying to ignore the constant worry about Max and my apartment. Every morning I checked my phone for Ashley's daily text, always some version of everything's fine, and tried to believe her. Over the weekend, I tried calling Ashley for a video chat. I missed Max terribly and needed to see his face, to hear him bark with excitement when he recognized my voice. Sorry, can't talk right now. Walking Max read her text response to my call. I tried again that evening. Making dinner, call tomorrow. Tomorrow came, and again, excuses. By Monday, I was getting suspicious. This pattern continued for days. Whenever I tried to see Max on video, Ashley always had a reason why she couldn't show him. Send me a picture of him, I texted her directly. Hours later, a photo arrived, Max lounging on my couch, looking happy and relaxed. I felt a momentary relief until I took a closer look at the image. The light coming through the window suggested early morning, not evening when she sent it. I scrolled back through my text history, finding earlier photos she'd sent. There it was, the exact same image sent 3 weeks earlier. She was recycling old photos. My heart raced as panic set in. Why would she send old pictures unless something was wrong? With shaking hands, I dialed Mrs. Carter's number. Hello, Claire, she answered, sounding less irritated than during our last conversation. Hi Mrs. Carter, I'm sorry to bother you, but I need to ask about Max. Have you seen him recently? Heard him barking? There was a pause that made my blood run cold. Now that you mention it, I haven't heard your dog in at least 2 weeks. The parties have continued, though they're quieter now. But no barking, no dog sounds at all. I thanked her and hung up, my mind racing with terrible possibilities. Where was Max? What had Ashley done? I immediately texted my sister, I need to see Max video call now. The message showed as read, but no response came. I called again, straight to voicemail. I left a message, my voice trembling with a mixture of fear and rage. Ashley, I know you're lying about the photos. Call me back immediately and show me Max, or I swear I'll call the police and report him stolen. Hours passed with no response. I couldn't concentrate on work, couldn't eat, couldn't think about anything except Max. The night passed in a sleepless blur as I checked my phone every few minutes, hoping for a response that never came. By morning, I knew I couldn't wait any longer. I called my boss, my fingers trembling as I dialed. Lisa speaking, she answered on the second ring. It's Claire. I need to go home. It's an emergency. Claire, what's wrong? I explained the situation as calmly as I could, though I could hear my voice cracking. I think something's happened to Max. My sister won't answer my calls, and my neighbor hasn't seen or heard him in weeks. I understand you're worried, but we're in the middle of this project. Could you wait until the weekend? She suggested gently. I shook my head, even though she couldn't see me, tears threatening to spill. I know this project is important for my career. I know I'm risking my promotion, but Max is family to me, and I can't sit here doing spreadsheets when he might be. I couldn't finish the sentence. There was a long pause on the other end of the line, then a sigh. I had a dog growing up, Lisa said softly. If I were in your shoes, I'd do the same thing. Another pause. Go. You've already accomplished most of what we needed anyway. We can handle the rest. I booked the first flight I could find, packed my bags in a frenzy, and headed to the airport. By the time my plane landed, it was nearly midnight. I took a taxi straight to my apartment, rehearsing what I would say to Ashley. The fury that had been building inside me for the past 24 hours had crystallized into something cold and hard. As the taxi pulled up to my building, I could hear music from the third floor, my floor. Great. Another party. I paid the driver, grabbed my suitcase, and marched up the stairs. The music grew louder as I approached my door. The scene that greeted me was worse than I'd imagined. About a dozen people sprawled across my living room, drinking from red cups, my furniture pushed against the walls to make space for dancing. The air reeked of alcohol and cigarettes. I dropped my suitcase with a thud, walked to the speaker system, and yanked the plug from the wall. The sudden silence made everyone freeze and turn toward me. Party's over, I announced, my voice steady despite the rage boiling inside me. Everyone out. Now. There were confused murmurs, but something in my expression must have conveyed that I wasn't to be argued with. People began gathering their things, filing past me with awkward apologies and averted gazes. Ashley emerged from the kitchen, her face registering shock when she saw me. Claire? What are you doing here? You're supposed to be in Seattle. Where's Max? I demanded, ignoring her question. She glanced around nervously as the last of her guests left. He's not here right now. I can see that. I stepped closer to her. Where is he? Ashley's expression changed, a flicker of vindictiveness crossing her face. Fine. You want to know where your precious dog is? I got tired of him. He wouldn't stop barking whenever we had people over. He was ruining all my fun. The world seemed to stop. I stared at my sister, this person I'd grown up with, now a complete stranger to me. What did you do? I whispered. I took him to a shelter, she said, her voice cold. He was a pain in the ass anyway. In that moment, I hated her with an intensity that frightened me. Get out, I whispered. Pack your things and get out right now, or I swear I'll do something we'll both regret. The moment she was gone, I collapsed onto the couch, exhaustion and fear washing over me. Max was in a shelter somewhere, but which one? There were at least a dozen in the city. I pulled myself together and grabbed my phone. It was past midnight, far too late to call any shelters, but I could email them. I drafted a quick message describing Max, Golden Labrador, male, 3 years old, microchipped, with my contact information, and sent it to every shelter I could find online. Sleep was impossible. I spent the night cleaning up the mess from Ashley's parties and trying not to cry every time I came across one of Max's toys. By morning, I was running on coffee and anxiety. I started calling shelters the moment they opened. The first 4 had no record of a dog matching Max's description. The 5th call changed everything. Yes, we did have a lab brought in about 2 weeks ago, the woman on the phone confirmed. Young female said it was a stray she'd found, but he had a microchip. We've been trying to contact the owner, but the phone number listed goes straight to voicemail. My old number. I'd changed it 6 months ago and updated it everywhere except, apparently, Max's microchip registry. That's my dog, I said, my voice breaking. His name is Max. I'm Claire. I can come right now with proof of ownership. We close at 5, the woman said kindly. We'll be waiting for you. I thanked her profusely, grabbed my purse and car keys, and rushed out the door. The shelter was on the other side of town, a 30-minute drive that felt like hours. All I could think about was Max, scared and confused, wondering why I'd abandoned him. When I arrived, I practically ran to the front desk, identification and adoption papers in hand. The staff verified my information and led me to the kennel area. And there he was, curled up in the corner of a cage, looking smaller somehow. His coat had lost some of its shine, and he didn't immediately look up when we approached. Max, I called softly. His head snapped up, ears perking, the moment of recognition in his eyes something that will stay with me forever. He jumped to his feet, tail wagging so hard his whole body shook, and let out a joyful bark that echoed through the shelter. The staff member opened the cage, and Max bounded into my arms, licking my face, whimpering with happiness. I hugged him tightly, tears streaming down my face, whispering apologies he couldn't understand but somehow seemed to forgive anyway. After completing the necessary paperwork to reclaim him, we walked out of the shelter together. Max stayed pressed against my leg the entire drive home, as if afraid I might disappear again if he lost contact. Back at the apartment, I gave him a thorough bath, checked him for any health issues, thankfully finding none, and fed him his favorite food. That night, he slept in my bed, something I'd never allowed before, but rules seemed less important now than keeping him close. The next morning, my phone rang. It was my mother. Claire, we need to talk about what happened with Ashley, she began without preamble. She's very upset. I laughed incredulously. She's upset? She abandoned my dog at a shelter and trashed my apartment. Don't be so dramatic. It was just a silly dog, and she was only having a little fun with her friends, my mother said dismissively. You need to apologize for throwing her out with nowhere to go. Beside me, Max rested his head on my lap, looking up with those trusting brown eyes that had kept him waiting for me at the shelter. This was the final straw. That's when I made a decision. A decision that would change everything. I opened my laptop and started typing. First, a detailed account of what Ashley had done, complete with timestamps and evidence. Then, a series of emails, to the local police department, to animal control, to the shelter where I'd found Max. I attached photos of my trashed apartment, screenshots of Ashley's lies, and witness statements from my neighbors. "You want to play games?" I muttered, hitting send on the last email. "Let's play." The wheels of justice might turn slowly, but they were about to turn in my favor. And by the time I was done, my family would learn that some betrayals come with consequences they never saw coming. The local news headline read, "Social media influencer charged with animal cruelty and fraud." Below it was Ashley's profile picture, the perfectly curated smile now frozen in digital infamy. My evidence was irrefutable. Security camera footage from my building showing Ashley roughly handling Max timestamped photos of the unauthorized parties. Bank statements showing she'd used my credit card for online shopping while I was away. And most damning of all, the shelter's documentation of her attempting to abandon Max under false pretenses. The police were particularly interested in the credit card fraud. Turns out, Ashley had been doing more than just throwing parties in my apartment. "Miss Wilson," the detective said, reviewing my statement, "these charges amount to over $12,000. That's grand theft." I watched Ashley's Instagram follower count plummet as the story spread. Her carefully constructed image of a carefree lifestyle influencer crumbled as her true nature was exposed. Her sponsorship deals vanished overnight. But I wasn't done yet. The animal welfare organization I'd volunteered with as a teenager took special interest in the case. They launched a campaign highlighting the consequences of pet abandonment, using Ashley's actions as a cautionary tale. The story went viral. My parents tried to intervene, of course. "Claire, you have to stop this," my mother hissed over the phone. "Do you know what this is doing to our family's reputation? Your father's colleagues are asking questions. Ashley can't even show her face in public." "Funny how you're suddenly concerned about consequences," I replied coolly. Where was this concern when she was abusing my trust and endangering Max? It was just a dog. No, I cut her off. Max is family. The only difference is, he's never betrayed me like my blood relatives have. The legal proceedings moved swiftly. Ashley pleaded guilty to avoid a trial, but the judge wasn't lenient. Community service at the local animal shelter, mandatory counseling, and full restitution of the stolen money plus damages. But the real punishment? The court ordered her to register as someone convicted of animal cruelty. Her dreams of being an influencer were permanently shattered, no brand would touch her now. My parents faced their own form of justice. Their country club membership was quietly revoked. Dad's university colleagues started avoiding him. Mom's bridge club suddenly had no room for her. The whispers followed them everywhere, "Aren't they the ones who defended that awful girl who abandoned her sister's dog?" Their carefully maintained social status crumbled like a house of cards. Meanwhile, my life took an unexpected turn. During one of Max's checkups after the shelter incident, I met James, a veterinarian with kind eyes and a gentle way with animals. His own dog, Luna, took an immediate liking to Max. "I followed your case," James told me during our first coffee date. "What you did? Standing up for Max, holding your family accountable? That took real courage." 6 months later, I received a letter from Ashley. I almost threw it away unopened, but curiosity won out. "Dear Claire," it began. "I'm writing this from my new job at the fast food place off Highway 20. Every day, I serve customers who recognize me as that girl who abandoned her sister's dog." The manager put up a framed newspaper article about animal welfare in the break room. "Your picture's in it, by the way. You're quoted as an advocate for pet protection laws. Mom and Dad had to sell their vacation home to cover the legal fees and settlement. They don't talk about you anymore, but they keep seeing your success everywhere. Your marketing firm's billboards, your interviews about animal welfare, your engagement announcement in the local paper. I know saying sorry isn't enough. But watching everything you've built while my life fell apart. I finally understand what real consequences feel like. Don't worry, I'm not asking for forgiveness. I just wanted you to know, you won. Completely. I folded the letter and looked down at Max, who was playing tug-of-war with Luna in our new house's backyard. James was setting up the grill for our weekend barbecue, chatting with our neighbors, the same ones who'd testified against Ashley in court. My phone buzzed with a notification. Another article about the strengthened pet protection laws I'd helped advocate for. The legislation was nicknamed Max's Law by local media. Everything okay? James called out, noticing my contemplative expression. I smiled, watching Max bound happily across our yard, all traces of his shelter trauma gone. Better than okay, I replied. Just thinking about how sometimes, justice comes in unexpected ways. I looked at my new family, James, Max, Luna, and the life we were building together. The life I'd fought for and won. A life built on trust, respect, and real love, everything my birth family had failed to provide. What do you think, Max? I asked, scratching behind his ears. Should we show them how a real family celebrates? He barked once, tail wagging, as if saying, we already have. My phone buzzed one last time. A news alert, local social media influencer files for bankruptcy. Below was a picture of Ashley leaving her minimum wage job, trying to hide her face from the cameras. I closed the alert without opening it. I didn't need to see Ashley's downfall anymore. My victory wasn't in her destruction, it was in the life I'd built from the ashes of her betrayal. The next morning, another letter arrived from my parents. Probably another attempt at guilt-tripping or manipulation. I took it straight to the fireplace, unopened. No response? James asked, watching me light the fire. No need, I replied, watching the envelope curl and blacken. Some people only learn when silence speaks louder than words. Max trotted over, nuzzling my hand as the letter turned to ashes. Outside, the sun was rising on another beautiful day in our new life, a life where justice had been served, wrongs had been righted, and love had won in the most unexpected ways. And really, isn't that the best revenge of all?